If you find yourself playing a racing game but want to take things to the next level, a steering wheel will provide that missing immersion, but the myriad of options can be overwhelming. Do you try a cheaper, unproven brand to test the water, or splash out immediately on a pricier known quantity? The choice is yours, but allow us to help you out. Let's immediately set some ground rules. We're setting a soft price cap of around £300 or $350 to ensure that this is focused on entry-level stuff. And it's worth noting that every single bundle we talk about in this video is compatible on PC, and every bundle can also, or the wheels specifically, can be mounted to a desk or a beginner cockpit such as a playseat. We will also cover console compatibility throughout, as Xboxes and PlayStations can provide a more affordable route into sim racing. It's also important to know which specific consoles are actually compatible. If you're looking to play the likes of F1 25 and upcoming titles like Project Motor Racing and NASCAR 25, you will need a PS5 or Xbox Series X or S, and therefore a wheel that works with those. Sim racing peripherals take the form of three important components: the wheelbase, the steering wheel, and the pedals. On high-end equipment, these are interchangeable, but most entry-level offerings will have all three parts together as an all-in-one bundle. For a truly immersive sim racing experience, a wheelbase with force feedback, known as FFB, is essential to be able to feel a car's behaviour. This system, often gear or belt driven at this price point, transmits crucial sensations through the steering wheel, like the car's movements, grip levels, and even road textures. So for us, that rules out the likes of the Hori RWA and PXN V900, which don't feature force feedback. FFB simulates steering weight, which can become heavier depending on speed or car, whereas these entry-level devices just vibrate and use a spring to return to centre. You will also need to be able to push the pedals firmly without them sliding away from you or tipping backwards. Some products will contain rubber grips for hard surfaces, others plastic teeth that grip into carpet, which can be useful for those without a full cockpit just yet. It's also worth noting that despite many entry-level pedal sets only containing 2 pedals, an accelerator and a brake, and some will contain 3 pedals, including a third clutch pedal, you don't actually need a clutch to be able to sim race competitively. It's entirely up to you. So, as a beginner, what we want is an all-in-one bundle with a force feedback wheel and a set of pedals. Now we'll run through our recommendations in price order from low to high, and you can also find links to all of the products that we discussed throughout this video in the description down below. We will also have a couple of affiliate links for certain products, so if you want to support our channel and you plan on buying any of these, you can use those affiliate links and it will help us, but it won't change your experience whatsoever. We will also, though, clearly label these and we'll put non-affiliate versions of links for the same product, so you don't have to do that. Kicking things off is the Thrustmaster T128, which has 2 variants. One is compatible with PC and PlayStation, both the PS4 and PS5, while the other variant is compatible with PC and Xbox, again both the Xbox One and Series X and S. These currently cost £149.99 or $199.99, but that can be slightly cheaper in sales, so eyes peeled. This 2Nm wheel features hybrid drive force feedback, which is a combination of belt and gears, and is bundled with the T2PM 2-pedal set. You also get 13 buttons, magnetic shifters, 900 degrees of rotation, and 4 tiny LED rev lights for your money. Given the low price point, however, it does feature clear compromises. Lots of hard plastic gives it a relatively cheap feel, whether that's the buttons, central console, or even the wheel rim itself, and this can get uncomfortable without gloves during a long stint. The pedals don't have a lot of travel distance, meaning super precise braking, especially without ABS on, can be challenging. But the force feedback quality exceeded our expectations. The button placement is spot on, and some of the smaller details like the grooves underneath for cable management, and having the ability to upgrade the pedals if you choose, make it fantastic value for money. I highly recommend checking out our full review on this bundle for all of the details. Logitech is up there with Thrustmaster as a gold standard brand for budget sim racing gear. Its line of products from the original G25 through to the more recent G29 and G923 has achieved a cult status of sorts within the niche. Most members of the Traxion team, including myself, have owned one or more of these wheels in the past, and even today I can recommend these older generation options as a good entry-level product. This is because, despite first appearing over a decade ago, the 900-degree 2.3Nm G29 can still be purchased new in sales for around £180 or $230. It still has a relatively premium feel to it, with a stitched leather wheel rim, stainless steel gearshift paddles, LED shift lights and 3 pedals with steel faceplates. The basic plastic desk mounting clamps have a large bandwidth and the buttons and dials are plentiful with natural ergonomics. It all just makes sense. One sticking point can be the pedals sticking. After a year or two of use and dust build-up, these pedals will need cleaned, and that involves a slightly annoying procedure with far too many tiny little screws and spraying the potentiometers with contact cleaner. Another downside is the relatively noisy FFB rattle when compared to others in this list, but if you still play on PC or PlayStation, it's still an obvious choice for beginners. However, if you have an Xbox, either the One or Series X or S, you would need to purchase the G920 instead. It's essentially an Xbox branded version of the G29 and is also PC compatible. But the G920 is arguably a small downgrade because it lacks the plus and minus buttons, as well as a multi-point rotating selection dial. The shift lights also don't feature here, but the pedals and internals are identical. The most recent entry-level Logitech, the G923, arrived in August 2020 with Xbox and PlayStation variants. You would have thought that in those 5 years many improvements would have been made, but the results are, visually at least, pretty underwhelming. For a much higher price at the time of around £379 or $399, it still looks like a G29, with many of the same materials and buttons. At least this time around the Xbox version also has the dial and shift lights. The main upgrades took place inside the wheelbase, with Logitech's proprietary TrueForce technology adding some additional force feedback details such as engine vibrations and road textures, albeit only for a smattering of compatible games. It's divisive, with some lauding it for its high-fidelity information, and others feeling it just distracts. We at Traxion fall more into the latter category. However, the force feedback is generally quieter and less rattly than its predecessor. The brake spring is more progressive too, although you do still suffer the same issue with dust buildup. The cost gap between this and the G29 isn't nearly as large as it was at launch, but unless the G923 undergoes a significant sale price, that difference is just difficult to justify. Next up is another bundle from Thrustmaster, the T248, which, when compared to the T128, includes upgraded pedals, a screen, stronger and adjustable force feedback, 2 rocker switches, 25 buttons, and leather wrapping on the wheel itself. There's an Xbox version and a PlayStation version, costing £269.99 or $329.99, and both are compatible with modern current-gen consoles and PC. The screen allows numerous adjustments to the force feedback strength, rev lights, degrees of rotation, and driving information. The included T3PM pedals feature a clutch, rubber pads underneath, and a swappable brake pedal spring. Notable downsides are primarily the sounds that this wheel produces. The shifters are clunky, but not in a nice way, and the hybrid force feedback system can feel a bit scratchy compared to some of its rivals, despite it being relatively powerful with 3.5 Nm of peak torque. It's aimed at those who want something to get started but don't want something that feels super entry level, and I have to say it achieves this pretty well. However, in terms of value for money, I'd have to say the T128 wins over this T248. There is a difference between the two, but not quite enough to justify the gap in price tags. I'm going to pivot for a minute to something that's equally as important as the new products we've been covering, and that is the second-hand market. You can get great deals on entry-level equipment in particular, as sim racers may find themselves quickly selling their still working kit in order to fund some upgrades. Of course, if you do go down this route, be aware of the drawbacks. Reliability isn't guaranteed, there could be missing parts or broken bits. Just make sure you ask all the right questions and make sure you're purchasing it from a trustworthy source. If you get a good one, you can find yourself a bargain. Check how long the seller has owned it for and how much they've used it. Ask if all the buttons are working, if all the cables are included, and if any spares such as pedal springs are included if relevant. And if it's an older model, make sure it's still compatible with your chosen game or platform. Some manufacturers like Fanatec also now offer refurbished lines. Availability isn't guaranteed, but a CSL DD bundle may occasionally be available with a discount. Of course, every current model we've mentioned can be available used, but here are some cheaper alternatives from the past. Logitech has several old models, the three main ones being the perennial G25, G27, and Driving Force GT. None are compatible with current consoles, but for those on PC, while this is older tech and likely well worn by this point, they are at least affordable. All three are gear driven, and the Driving Force GT even contains a built-in sequential shifter. Meanwhile, Thrustmaster's belt-driven range from the past includes the ever-popular T150, and surprisingly it still works with current consoles. Good condition ones can be available for under £100, but just watch out for the deterioration of the rubber grips. You may well want to use gloves with the T150. Then there's the T300RS, which despite being 11 years old is still available new. It works on current devices and has a removable wheel, which with an adapter means you can purchase additional designs. But the recommended retail price is a staggering £329.99 or $339.99, hence why we're only recommending this as a second-hand item. Before moving on, I do want to make the point that you can actually still be competitive in terms of speed and performance on used, second-hand, older, cheaper entry-level equipment. I spent many years using old Logitech G series wheels, raced competitively in esports championships. Even when we started Traction, I was doing the track guides and stuff, I was using a G29 for that. Of course, you won't have the same level of information or detail as a 4-figure direct drive monster or a load cell brake pedal, but at the end of the day, if you're fast and consistent, you can build up that muscle memory and you can still do well. Maybe at the very highest level, you'll struggle, but for most people, you can have a good time and you can beat a lot of people using more expensive equipment. Back to the new products and stepping things up a gear. I mentioned direct drive just now because this is the ultimate current day form of force feedback technology. In short, it uses an independent motor to drive the main steering shaft, resulting in reliable, smooth, detailed, powerful, and instantaneous feedback. I hadn't mentioned it earlier because most direct drive wheels aren't available at an entry-level price point, but not all. For example, the PXN V99, and on paper, this is the best value sim racing wheel on the market, period. Sure, you'll be taking a punt on a relatively unknown brand, but just look at what you get for a measly £199. Not a 2-pedal set, but 3. Not 2 paddles, but 4. Unlike Logitech and Thrustmaster, the H-pattern shifter is included, and you can even remove the wheel. As a result, the driving experience is smoother and quieter than most contemporaries. However, it somehow manages to feel less accurate and a bit slow, and that's not the only gripe. The paddles are noticeably less tactile than Logitech's. The brake pedal feels like it has similar resistance to the throttle, so not ideal for modulation. And if you're driving on a console, you must plug a gamepad into the back of the wheelbase at all times. This is presumably to bypass Sony and Xbox approvals. It also won't work on PS5 at all, even with the gamepad workaround. Finally, while there is a quick release, PXN itself doesn't sell different wheels as add-ons. We did find an E-Cannon available on AliExpress, described as a non-destructive replacement for PXN V99, which is like advertising a spoon as non-lethal cutlery. So, we move on. Spend a little bit more, and you can actually find a direct drive bundle worth considering. The Cammus C5 is unique, with a direct drive motor integrated within the steering wheel itself, rather than in a separate base. Its ability to deliver constant torque at 5 Nm makes it comfortably more powerful than the belt and gear-driven alternatives we've discussed, providing more detail in the process. Yet, premium materials like aluminium and carbon fibre aside, it can feel relatively rudimentary. The wheel itself is heavy, the software feels a work in progress, the brake pedal lacks decent resistance, and it's PC only. Thanks to its unique design, there's no space left for usual gearshift paddles either. They're only large enough for 1 or 2 fingers, and the whole thing can be extremely loud. A bit like a cheap and purpose-built sports car, its performance is strong versus market rivals, but as an overall package, is it really a better daily driver? I guess it depends where your priorities lie. So that leaves us with the MOZA R3 Bundle. We're impressed with its punchy performance, a noticeable step up from non-direct drive alternatives. With 3.9 Nm of peak torque, it's not massively more powerful, but the DD technology and well-developed software gives it enhanced clarity, smoothness, and detail. The Xbox variant is £359 or $359, putting it slightly out of range for true entry level, but there is also a PC-only bundle at £299 or dollars. The only difference other than compatibility being the lack of Xbox branding on the ES steering wheel. Furthermore, an aluminium alloy frame with microfiber leather grips, aluminium shifters, LED shift lights, and a plethora of buttons, albeit without any rotary encoders or dials, provides this wheel with a better than basic feel. The steel SRP light pedals do lack crucial braking resistance, which can be rectified by a sub £30 performance upgrade kit, and we would recommend this if your pedals are secure enough to cope with additional forces, but obviously this takes the cost up further. Now, we could keep going, saying if you spend just a little bit more you can get X and Y, but honestly at this point I believe we've reached the end of what I could consider an entry-level sim racing bundle for beginners. If you do want to spend a bit more for something that bit better, consider watching our video for the best sim racing bundles under $500. Click the link on screen now, or head to the description for that one. So, with all of that being said, here are our top picks. For me, the best outright value for money offer on the lower end of the budget scale is the Thrustmaster T128, and it has good compatibility options with PlayStation and Xbox variants. It does feel a bit cheap, the pedals aren't great, but it drives well and quite simply works well. Relative price aside, the outright best package from this whole video is the MOZA R3. But it's also the most expensive. The Xbox version is beyond our price cap, and the brake performance kit takes the PC bundle over the threshold too, which leads us back around to a sensible all-round compromise, the Logitech G29 and G920. Again, it's not as good a product as the G923, but the price gap can't quite be justified. And there are very good reasons why Logitech have been making these for over a decade, and they remain so popular. Any G-series bundle on a good deal is well worth consideration. And that's going to round things off. Leave us a like if you found this video helpful, subscribe for more sim racing guides in future, and until next time, thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.